My name is Jafet. I started recording music here in this very sound booth here at my grandma's church, Templo Maranata, on the south side of San Antonio. Uh, I really was just experimenting at that age with a few different like software demos and dragging microphones here to the back of the booth and then trying to get it all cleaned up before my mom came to pick me up, right? Um, and that's how we got started. Fast forward a few years, I went into playing music professionally and played with a few different bands and did a few different recording sessions. And all the while, I was really itching to write my own music. Sometimes I had the opportunity, sometimes I didn't, but I had a nice stack of music I had saved up. And finally, a few years ago, I got the chance to start recording again with my own laptop, my own setup. And it was a bumpy ride at first because I was trying to figure out the entire like mixing and mastering bedroom recording thing, and it was kind of rough. But what was important to me was that I was getting some music out there, and for me, that was important because the whole reason I even started writing music was because I wanted to encourage people. I know that when I was younger, music was a really huge influence on me through some anxiety and depression and things that I went to when I was a teenager. So, in a way, I wanted to return the favor. And as the years went on, and I got out of playing bars and gigs and back into the church, um, things changed. Uh, yeah, sorry. But um, as the years went by, things changed, and I got to a really low point in life where it seemed like a lot of my pursuits in and out of music had kind of ended up nowhere. And I went into prayer before God and I told him, okay, I'm going to give you another chance. I just need to know that you're real. I need to know that you're out there. And that begun this really long chain of events that led me to sitting here in this seat right now. And this album is telling that story of from where I first decided to pursue to where I am now. Um, and so that's why. That's why all the lyrics are meaningful to me. And throughout this whole process, I've been praying that this album would be something that the Lord could use for others. Because ultimately, like the Bible says, unless the Lord builds the house, the workers work in vain. And that was the theme going through this process. So we prayed before our recording sessions, we prayed before the session and filming right now. And that's just been the very cornerstone of what we're doing. And if one or two people get saved because of this, then I would have accomplished what I set out to do. So musically, this album is all over the place. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I've dabbled in so many different genres over the years, and bands and with different musicians. It's hard for me to stick to one genre, and so instead of trying to constrain myself to just one style of music, I decided, hey, why not just do it all? I tried my best to make it cohesive in the mix and with the instrumentation, but going through the album, you'll listen to it and you'll hear that there's a little bit of everything in there. A little bit of country influence, a little bit of R&B influence, some blues influence, some rock influence, some shoegaze influence. There's definitely a lot going on there. Um, but so the album itself started recording it last year, like April of 2024. Before that, I had played around with the idea of recording an album. I'd always wanted to record one. I just the resources were never there or the timing wasn't right. So finally, I took the step to start recording last year, and thank God everything just fell into place. Little by little, everything just fell into place. Everyone who I reached out to was more than willing to help out. All the musicians, the studio that I was working with Mr. John Pollock at Wavemaker Studios, it all just came together so perfectly that I knew that God was in it. So throughout the whole process, like I mentioned before, it was a learning process. I learned a lot about workflow, a lot about working with people's schedules, a lot about myself and working with one other person on and during the production, and it's honestly been a blessing. I've worked on other projects in the past where it's been like full band stuff, and it's been easier because you have other people by your side to help you kind of plan and orient and mix and do stuff like that. In this case, it was harder because it was just me and John, and it was Time consuming, yeah, because I was working a lot of overtime trying to cover the payments for the studio and for the musicians and for the mixing and all that stuff. But it was 100% worth it. And I would absolutely do it all again, having to struggle through it, having to suffer through it, because I listened back to these tracks and I think, wow, I can't believe we did this. So I'm very grateful that we made it this far. And we're, as of this video right now, we're so close to being done. But of course, by the time this video releases, the album will be done. So that's it. The album is called And the Heavens Sighed. And the name of the album comes from a verse in scripture. It's the story of Lazarus, and it's the shortest verse in the Bible. It says Jesus wept. And to me, that tells me that God feels emotion just like we feel emotion. We're created in his image. And so I like to think that when I take a sigh of relief or when I take a sigh of stress, that he's there with me. So that's the album. I remember I was on a beach in South Carolina. That's where this little melody came to me. I think that was where. I remember I had learned this chord from a song. And I had gone through maybe like a few different versions of this song. The lyrics were completely different from what it is now. But when it came to going into the studio, the atmosphere of the song completely changed, because I usually write on the acoustic guitar. So in this case, adding more instruments turned it into something completely different. Lyrically, so the song's called Let's Start Here. And so the song's called Let's Start Here. And lyrically, it's the first part of the story. Now, this is before the main character gets introduced. So this is God reaching out to a man, right? There's a part in this song that says, tiny faith, mustard seeds, throwing mountains into the sea. And that's a reference to Christ talking about where if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, that you can tell this mountain to move. And then another part, I think, is in the book of Luke, where he says, if you have like a small amount of faith, you could tell this tree to get up and go throw itself in the ocean. And the whole point to illustrate this was that it just takes a little bit of faith, right? And that was the basic premise of the song, right? And so the whole thing of it is written from like God's perspective, saying, come seek me out and I'll show you what we can be. Now, musically speaking, I wanted this to be cinematic. Once I got into the studio, once we started plugging voices in and instruments in, I really wanted this to feel kind of like a Disney movie. So when I was in the studio with Bree and Joseb, who did vocals for the song, I just told him to think about the movie The Iron Giant. And a specific scene where he goes and flies into like an asteroid to stop it. And he's closing his eyes and he's saying, I'm Superman, right? So I wanted them to really convey that emotion of like a climax into it, right? Because this is the start of the story. This is where God meets man. And this is where everything begins. There's a really killer saxophone at the end of it, played by Josh Nosto. He really channeled like an emotional, almost 80s kind of sound, and it was perfect. It was perfect. And when the whole thing came together, I listened to it and I'm just in awe of what it came out to be. So that's the first song. Let's start here. That's how this one started. It was just a little like line, and I wondered, how does this work in a song, right? So then I did a little. something like that. This song is called Mega Church. Now, I love talking about this song because the contents of which are a huge part of like my faith and how I ended up where I am, right? So this is the second song on the album. At this point in our story, I'm attending a church, but I'm not really. I don't have a relationship with God. I'm just at church, which is a common story among a lot of people who do go to church and maybe even like bigger churches like that, right? And so the lyrics, that first couple lines is, uh, in crowded rooms of ivory towers where men in suits preach higher powers. It's just a representation of how one can feel disconnected to the preacher and the message, right? Um, which was definitely my story. And then um, the chorus just talks about how the person in the story, right? They need something more than what they feel that they're getting. They need something real. They want something real. There's some reality out there. And they believe in some reality out there, right? They believe that there's God out there, but they maybe just don't feel like they're getting that where they are. And at this point, this was me maybe like in my early 20s, being in different churches and stuff like that and hearing different messages, but really my life of faith more so revolved around me rather than God. And so I didn't really feel like, I don't know, maybe I just wasn't all that happy with things. And I think that's why, because I didn't really know God. I knew the church and I knew sermons. I didn't really know God, because really, if you want to know God, you have to open up your Bible and read. I mean, that's the only way to know God. That's His Word, right? But so that's the whole premise of that song, is wanting to know God, yet feeling disconnected in the place that you're in. Musically, a lot of my background is in like funk and R&B. I'm really a bass player at heart, but I picked up the guitar because it helps me write. Now, this is a song that doesn't have any acoustic in it, and it was actually written on an electric guitar. But again, it starts off with that line, right? Like that's how it started. And I thought, hey, that sounds like really 90s, like kind of like really kind of poppy, right? And I wondered how else can I add on to that. So then I had the bass line in my head, though. I thought, hey, that sounds pretty cool. So I ended up putting them together and then getting the song. And I thought it needed maybe some more texture, some more atmosphere. So I got in touch with the flute player, Maria from Colombia. And she was able to lay down some incredible flute lines, which really complemented the entirety of the song. And I also had my friend Jacob, or Ira is his stage name. He was able to lay down some incredible like rapping parts, some insane bars. And I gave him the subject matter of what the song was, and he laid down a very personal section right after the second verse. And we wrap it up with another chorus, and after that we have this long, oh, not really too long of an instrumental section to wrap it up. And I added some of the studio banter that we recorded while we were in the booth with Lauren and her cousin Michaela, which helped us on the vocal end. Which, by the way, Lauren was very, very good in the studio. She did an amazing job recording vocals. And it was a very fun session, I remember. And so I took some of the banter and added on top of the song to kind of give it kind of a reminiscing feel, reminding me of whenever I was going to that church and how my friends and I would hang out afterwards and just crack jokes. And so I threw that in there just to give it a bit of atmosphere. And yeah, this song went through a few different names, but I decided on the name Mega Church because at that point in my life, that's where this was taking place. Oh, Big Empty Sky. This is a song about escapism and about dealing with regret. By the time we're at this point in our story, um, I've already met with God, uh, and I've already decided to start seeking Him out, right? And I was dealing with a lot of the weight of my shame from the past, and there was a part of me that wanted to get up and leave the city and just move somewhere else and start over. You know, there's a line in the song that says, "Go to a place without a name, 1,000 miles away, stay for the winter and leave again," right? Which is just constantly moving on instead of dealing with whatever issue is at hand, right? Um, but that verse is a bit more, or that chorus, sorry, is a bit more hopeful, saying, "What if we hold on? What if we hold on because there could be a better way of doing things?" And that's really the message of the song there, is instead of running from whatever it is that's wanting to make you run, but to stay and deal with it. Musically, this is more of a country-based song. And actually the chords, the original version of the song was more jazz. And I don't know how it took a country shape, but it just happened to work out that way. But thankfully, I'd spent the last couple of years playing with a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Nate De Leon, and he lended his vocals to the song because we'd always talked about doing something together, and the time finally came. He does such an amazing job articulating the lyrics and the meaning of the song with Miss Brianna Michaud behind them, laying down some really, really nice harmonies. And of course, this is a song where our drummer JT, Mr. Buddy P, really shines because he shines in every song, but this one specifically, he's got some really good chops in there. And yeah, that's the song. It sounds almost completely different than everything else on the album, but I'm happy it's there. And that's Big Empty Sky. I think this one's my favorite song on the album. It's called The Invisible Man. And this one was heavy to write, and it's even heavier to talk about. I wrote this song kind of in a really dark place, but a place where I found comfort. And like I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of this album is based on the idea that God feels what we feel, that He knows how we feel. And The Invisible Man is really simple. And the first part of the song just says, "I am the voice inside you calling for help when it's midnight and you're all by yourself. Um, I am the pain inside, the one you can't stand. I am the invisible man." And I think we all have parts of ourselves that we don't really share, things that we don't open up about, things that we keep to ourselves. And sometimes those things might try to come knocking at the door, and we just keep burying them under different things. In comes the second verse, which is, "I am the voice from heaven offering help when it's midnight and you're all by yourself. I know how you feel, like no one understands. I am the invisible man." And that second verse is written from the perspective of Christ. It's written from the perspective of Jesus, who also had his moment, like in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he felt alone, where he felt an intense emotion, right? And this is Christ reaching out to man, specifically that part of man that no one else knows, and saying, if nobody else, then I know how you feel. And saying that you're not alone in this, and I'm right here whenever you want to call. And that's actually the bridge, right? And the bridge is, "If you ever want to see me, just reach out and grab my hand. This night won't last forever. In the morning, I'll be there." So it's a symbol of hope, you know? So that's the reason that's one of my favorite songs, if not my favorite song, because it's there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth that God sees the vulnerabilities that others don't. Now, I think musically, this was also maybe one of my favorite ones to record. Now, I played the bass and the organ and some of the guitar, more of the rhythm stuff. But I had Jacob Rodriguez, Sarah Rodriguez, and Benji Rodriguez. They're all siblings. They're all worship leaders. I had them come in and record. Benji played the lead guitar. Sarah sang vocals, and so did Jacob. Now, their dad, Rudy Rodriguez, was a really amazing musician who I grew up listening to. He was a saxophone player, was on a lot of great albums I listened to in the 90s. And that same spirit carries on with them. And having them all on the track was something really special. And half of the track has lyrics, and half of the track is straight instrumental. And it's a beautiful piece. And again, shout out to Buddy P, JT on the drums, because he really shows out with what he does rhythmically on this song. So this is one of my favorites, and it's called The Invisible Man. This one's called Shouting in an Empty Room. And I remember when I wrote it, I was praying in my room. And I had just moved into a new place, and there wasn't a thing in this room except for like my bed and like a table. And I remember praying loudly, like, God, I need you. God, if you're there, I need to hear from you. And I thought, man, from the outside, this would look like I'm just shouting in this like empty room, hoping for somebody to hear me. And the song actually started off as part of that prayer, because I was in my room singing it to myself. Will you hear me if I cry? And your voice you'll recognize. And it says, and when I sigh, do the heavens sigh with me. So that song is actually based off of a prayer, and wanting to hear from God, and putting all your eggs in that basket, putting all your faith out there, and seeing if just He'll hear. And at this point of the story, I've been running towards God, and at times it's been alone because there's a lot of sacrifice involved in it. Musically, this one, I used sounds that I recorded from the ocean. I went out to Canada and I recorded the Pacific Ocean. It was the most extra way to do it, but man, I had to do it. So I got some recordings out there, and I plugged them into the song, into the ocean, because I've always seen the ocean as a metaphor for God because of its power that nobody can withhold. And yeah, so that gave me that feeling. And the song is very soft rock, 90s-ish, kind of something you'd hear on like a contemporary Christian radio. And I had Amanda Gallegos and Josep Garza singing, and what an amazing job. Two beautiful voices on it, really conveying this prayer on top of this song, along with Josh Nasto again on the sax, presenting this. I mean, the end of the song is this ripping saxophone solo that's just, we were in the studio, and he asked me, hey, do you mind if I do a take where I just go off? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead and go off. And he did. It's like a minute and 30 seconds of it, and it's just incredible. Yeah, this one's a really good one. So Shouting in an Empty Room, that's the song. Home Where We Belong was supposed to be the last song of the album before I added one more little voice recording. The song wasn't originally going to be on it, but ended up falling perfectly where I needed it, so it came on. And it started off as an instrumental, but I always had the melody for the chorus in my head. Come home, home where we belong. And this song is about finally coming to the place where you are surrendered and fully believing in God, and you're finally home where He intended you to be, where you finally have that peace inside your heart. You finally have that confidence inside your soul, that faith inside your soul, and you're at peace with life, its troubles, and everything that could possibly happen. And that's honestly, that's the song. That's it. It's just joy in being home. Musically, it's two chords. Pretty much the whole song is just two chords because it was just an instrumental. Of course, again, highlighting JT does an amazing job laying down the foundation for the song. We had some strings come in. I hired some people from Italy to do the strings on this song, and they came out fantastic. It's my friend Lalo, Faith, and Abby who are doing the vocals on this song, and their harmonies, because they've played so much together. They're just so tight, and they come out perfect. I had my buddy RJ playing keys, and he did such an amazing job with that. And it ends off with this build until it hits this guitar solo that I had to record several times because I just wasn't happy with it, but eventually got to a point where it was perfect in my eyes. So that's it. There's not much to say about this one. It's just about being happy that you and God being happy that you're home, that you found your faith and that you found Him. And that's home where we belong. I added one more song last minute to the album, and it's simply called Voice Memo 002. I wrote the song not too long ago, and I wrote it because I wanted to talk about the changes that happened in between me starting the album and me ending it. And the song just talks about how glad I am to be near God and how happy I am that things are the way they are now after going through that whole journey and being where I am. It features my friend Axel, who did an amazing job with the vocals, and we recorded it in my home. So it's gonna sound like I recorded it on my phone. And honestly, I think that's the perfect way to finish off the album. So that's it. Special shout out to JT for doing the drums, to Isaiah for doing the keys, to Kevin for doing the keys, for RJ for doing the keys, to Roy for doing keys, and to Josh for doing the saxophone, and for John Pollock and Wavemaker Studios for allowing me to do my thing there. There might be some people I'm forgetting, but of course they're going to be on the credits. So God bless, and I think it's time for dinner.